Welcome everyone to Indexer Office Hours number 39. This is me, Payne, speaking. I'll be your host for today, as Gary isn't feeling that well. So without further ado, let's get started. So first topic. By the way, before we start, we're gonna have Matt, Adam, and probably Leo joining us later to talk about the recent graph integrations, particularly Solana and Near, and also we have Joseph. If anyone has any questions related to the Cosmos integration. So let's get started and talk about our regular topics. That is Node Watch. So not really much had happened in the last week or so. We know that we're gonna have support for another cycle of Ethereum on Open Ethereum because it's not apparently getting deprecated. But other than that, I'm not entirely sure if we have anything worth discussing. If anyone knows anything that really wants to discuss in this session, just let me know. But
did you say OE is not being deprecated?
I think so. I mean that was the consensus last time we talked about Open Ethereum. They will be getting another upgrade to support the next hard fork, the difficulty bomb, whatever is called, in December.
That's cool, and I'm glad that the timelines for support are extended, but has any intent been communicated by the maintainers to commit long-term resources to maintaining it beyond that hard fork?
Not entirely sure. Probably not. Sake Machine,
Okay.
do you know anything? I guess not. Well, I can check the their last release or something, but
I think unless we hear some official statement from somebody who's willing to maintain the code base that they will support it long term, we should probably, as an ecosystem, continue to consider it soon to be deprecated, even if there's a little bit more support than we were expecting.
Yeah, I'm also curious, like they've been saying that it's gonna be deprecated during what was the name of it? Shanghai hard fork, but I've seen no mention of that particular hard fork anywhere. I
think the Shanghai fork was a long time ago.
No,
wasn't it supposed to be the London fork? That was the last.
No, London. No. Yeah, technically speaking, London was the last, but after the next hard fork, it wouldn't work. And that next one was supposed to be Shanghai or something, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, but I agree. We didn't see anything about. I did not see anything about an announcement that Open Ethereum is now maintained. That's to be seen, right?
Yeah, so last week's consensus of everyone that attended was that I think Gary posted some PR of Open Ethereum, I believe, and it was saying that it's gonna be still supported for the next difficulty bomb until hopefully the merge. But yeah, I'm out of the loop on that side, unfortunately.
It would be curious to check it out. I'm tracking the Open Ethereum repo, and I did not see anything related. I saw some PRs, but I did not see anything about like being maintained or anything. So
I can check in the history, but yeah.
Any insight, Chris, about the new Aragon clients, like the two new clients they are actually pushing out after Aragon itself? I don't recall the names, but did you saw that?
I'm aware of them. I believe one in is it one in Go and one in Rust?
one in C++, and after that, it seems the C++ version is well advanced, and after that, they want to push a Rust version. So I did not understood why they're actually doing that. Like start with Rust and be with it, or keep C++ and that's it.
Yeah, that
actually pushing
seems
two
like
clients.
strange. Both of those choices seem like the same. Yeah. I'm excited for the Rust release, certainly. But I'd probably, yeah. I need to do more research, I guess.
Oh, so there you go. Steak Machine just found something. So Open Ethereum 3.3.0 RC14 enhancements delay difficulty bump to June 2022 for Ethereum mainnet, the IP 4345, whatever that is. So I'm not exactly sure.
I
if
mean,
it's
like my
related
reading
to...
of the situation is that there may be the client may be a viable mainnet client for a period longer than we expected, but there isn't any indication that anybody is committing, longer term maintenance resource to the client, and as an ecosystem we should probably move on from it.
Yeah, for
before
sure.
everything breaks.
I mean, it didn't make sense storage wise to just move away from it, because yeah, having to sync 1.8 terabytes of data instead of 8 point something is definitely an upside, I guess. But yeah, so leaving that aside, for the other topics, Repo Watch, we don't have really anything I'm aware of right now other than a CLI release. Let me get 𝗨𝗀𝗧𝗪 up to speak if he has anything to say, but I'm not aware of anything that's worth discussing. Sebastian, are you around?
Hey. Yeah, no, I didn't look actually.
Yeah, so I had a look prior to this session, but I couldn't find really anything that was worth discussing. Adam, do you know anything on the GraphNode side that's worth talking about?
There's been nothing over the last week or so, but there will be a GraphNode release pretty shortly, which will have a few things in it. I think it will have the near support stuff that we're gonna talk about, though that's obviously not sort of functioning on mainnet yet. But it's there, and some things around sort of an API version bump and those kind of things. But yeah, like there's a bit of phasing required, so we're just working through those things. But we'll make sure that anything that folks need to be aware of is in the release notes.
All right, cool. So yeah, with that out of the way, I think we can just start talking about the recent GraphNode integrations. For example, and the other chain integrations. For example, Near and Solana, and maybe also Cosmos again with Joseph. I just wanted to have like a casual discussion for anyone that still wants to ask any questions, or like, yeah, you get the idea. So I'm very curious on you, Matt, if you want to briefly chat about the Solana integration. I've also joined the community talk, and yeah, I'm super excited to hear more out about the future integration with Solana. I heard that it's gonna come around possibly Q1 next year.
Yeah, hopefully it will be Q1. Like I said, this is the start of the work for the integration. We don't have anything like, let's say, in GraphNode right now to actually test that out. What we are working on is actually the instrumentation part of the Solana chain, so that we are able to actually extract data from it into flat files, which are well known now. So yeah, the goal is that, and we already had a working firehose version in the past because we work with the Serum decks there to actually do some work for them in UI and data providing, and we had a working firehose version that was actually extracting blocks from the chain and processing that through all our stack mostly. And the challenges that we are actually doing up with is right now is syncing. Just syncing is actually not easy. It's a bit over, like it's just a bit harder than syncing BSC. Maybe so it's in the same kind of range. It's just that there's a lot of peering problem. There's hiccup with the software itself. So syncing is not an easy thing. We always used to actually have everything in Kubernetes. We sync all our nodes previously in Kubernetes, and now we might need to switch to something else. So it's unclear yet.
Okay, that's
So
interesting. So
yeah,
I'm very curious. Like you compared it to BSC, so it can actually keep up to chain head, right? Because like I think Solana is way much faster than BSC is in terms of like blocks per second or blocks per minute or whatnot.
yeah, it's faster, but Solana has a different architecture completely, where it leverages multi-threading CPUs. Actually, a transaction are executed in parallel. How they do that is that all your transaction or instruction, in this case, because a transaction contains multiple instructions, each instruction has the list of writable accounts and readable accounts that it will be required to run the instruction. So since you have the write and read accounts, you're able to actually put all transactions that only read in parallel, right? It's possible to execute them. So I said that because I know that BSC, some people are struggling. You need fast NVMe disk. You need a lot of disk space, especially for archive node. But it's the same kind of challenges. You need fast disk. You need a big network throughput. We discussed with Figment guys, and they said that they are currently, I think, 60 megabits of throughput, of sustained throughput. So that's a lot, right, on a network pipe.
For an archive node, 60.
Sorry?
For an archive node of Solana, only 60 megabits per second throughput.
60 megabit, yeah.
That's quite low because like
megabit or megabytes of data per second.
Well, I said I don't recall the exact discussion, but I think it was megabytes. So 60 out of 100 connection, 100 megabyte connection.
That's quite low because the validators run at 700 megabit per second.
Okay. It's interesting. That's maybe I will need to clarify that with the Figment team, what they give us. So I might be wrong here. Sorry if I carry misinformation.
Other shit on your Solana box, Ping.
Sorry?
Maybe you run too much other shit on your Solana box.
It's not that I run too much crap on it, but like
last time I checked, it was like 200 megabits or something. Yeah.
For testnet,
Okay.
it's quite low, but mainnet is quite a bit higher than that.
Okay.
So yeah,
Maybe I'm missing a 10x thing here.
I mean, that may be explained by bits and bytes, like that's a factor of 8.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that actually
8 is not
about right.
Yeah, maybe. Anyway, there's a lot of network, right? So that's something. For Firehose specifically, one of the main point is the account data. Okay, what you have in Solana is that each smart contract has a data blob. So it's not like in Ethereum where we have you have fields which are kind of rows in a table. What you have access to is a blob of data, and you write to it. So one of the things that we'd like to have is to have the state diffs between what the account has before and what the account has after in his data memory. But diffing a full, let's say, 1 meg of memory, it creates a lot of thing in the Firehose block. And I think 2 or 3 months ago, we were something at 1 terabyte per per 2 weeks. We were generating 1 terabyte of flat files per 2 weeks, something like that. You can see that it really goes fast. And right now, one of the challenges in what we are looking at is actually compression algorithm for account data diffs. So like just saving the diff in bits between two changes based on a single common point. That's something that we are currently doing, and it will be interesting to actually see how it goes. And of course the throughput, just the throughput of the chain, it's I did not check recently, but like 4,000 transactions per second or something like that. So it's quite fast. It's quite fast, and you need some kind of good architecture to actually index all that. So just in GraphNode, it will be interesting to see how it goes when you actually need to, let's say you have 1 or 2 transactions or 10, maybe 100 per block to actually index in the GraphNode code base. That will be interesting to see how it goes. And also historical access is a pain point in Solana. Archive node does not totally exist, right? You can actually tweak a little bit of it, but not get the full history. So we'll see how we can actually tackle that. There are some snapshots right now that exist that the Solana teams are providing, and we aim to actually use those snapshots to generate historical blocks. That would be kind of our experiment right now. We played with it a little bit in the past, but we think that it should be possible that from the snapshot they are giving us, we should be able to actually reprocess blocks from them. We'll see. It's something that will be going. The initial integration, the goal will to have it more in the current blocks only, and adding historical blocks as we go. So our first objective will be to have it live, sync with the network, following the chain, and make it work with the graph node. That's kind of the initial objective, and after that we'll add more and more historical blocks as we go.
That's very interesting. I just wonder how huge that archive node would be if you were to have all the transactions and all the states from the beginning of the chain. That's just insane.
I don't want to actually compute that. I think we last time we checked, and we computed that in two years or something, it would be kind of 70 terabyte of data, something like that, for 2 years of Solana, depending on the throughput and everything. So yeah, we're looking into maybe splitting that differently, maybe not the stages, the instruction, and we'll see what we can do exactly. But we have it in mind that it will need to be run by people with not normal hardware, because I think it's
yeah,
we'll need a better hardware than the average thing. But we understand that like Indexer will need to run that somehow, so that we looking at ways to make that possible.
Matt, earlier you said that you were reconsidering Kubernetes as an orchestration tool, and it felt like you were suggesting that the workload is quite difficult to orchestrate inside of Kubernetes, and I was wondering whether you could expand on that anymore.
We have some kind of limitation. Maybe it's I'll say it's Kubernetes. It might not be just Kubernetes. It's more Kubernetes inside GCP. That would be more fair. Okay. What we currently have as a limitation is more a network thing, where we cannot have a single IP with UDP and TCP traffic going in, or at least we do not know how to do it properly. So that's why it's not. It should be possible to actually make it work, but we might need to actually have local SSD or something like that to have the necessary IO-PS operation. This is something that we are looking into it. Of course, we would like to not go out of the cluster. We have all our tools there. We have all our reprocessing. We have some Kubernetes operator to actually drive our reprocessing jobs and stuff like that. So. But it's something that we are looking into right now because we had some problem. We were able to sync nodes 2 months ago. It was in Kubernetes. It was working correctly, but we seem to having harder time now. So we are exploring alternatives, but mainly the pain point that we have right now is around getting the traffic correctly routed to our endpoints. So I would not say it's kind of a workload problem or a machine type problem. It's more that maybe a limitation of the load balancer and stuff like that. So need to look into it. Yeah, if people have knowledge about getting UDP and TCP on the same IP inside the load balancer and getting it inside the G-key cluster, that would be great.
Yeah, I've done this. It is a bit finicky, but we can chat about it. It is possible.
Sure. So yeah, I think that resume it well the current workload. Yeah, if we have question, let's go ahead.
Yeah, I was just curious, like, have you ever thought of just modifying the Solana client to make it I don't know, fit your needs? And like maybe not like I know there's a ton of transactions that are mainly chit chat between validators, basically, I think.
Yeah, the voting.
Yeah. So yeah, you could possibly just get rid of those, or like maybe process them in a different way or something like that. I don't know. I'm just talking out loud.
No, but that's something that we thought of, like when we did the first integration, like eliminating voting transaction, because there's a lot, like you said, a lot of traffic for not that much usefulness, especially since at that time we were actually indexing Serum. So yes, it's something that we thought of. Our current instrumentation is actually hacking the Solana validator itself. So we are in the roots of the validator directly, but it's something that we explored. Like I said, most of the biggest kind of pain point is the account state deltas that we save, and like we are looking at everything that would be possible. Maybe even not indexing the account data at all. That could be a possibility. And smart contract would need to actually get the information back into maybe logs or something. It's something, everything is open right now. We'll try to make it work with the account data directly, because this is where the interesting piece of the data is stored and makes sense. But yeah, we are kind of checking everything that we can, right?
Yeah, all I know about 𝗨𝗀𝗂𝗧𝗂𝗋, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm wondering, how confident are you that you will get it running like on, let's say, commodity hardware, so that indexers like us will be able to use it in the next 3 months?
Confident, I would say half, let's say 50-50. It's hard to say. It's really hard to say. Like when we have the files, the firewalls blocks, it's not a problem anymore. It's just a storage problem. It's not that hard. So our goal is to have it running just the way with a normal validator that you would have, right? If they say, for example, that syncing mainnet requires, I don't know, 64 cores and 128 gigabyte of RAM, that's what we aim to actually require for syncing blocks, right? There should be no difference there. Hopefully it will not be that problematic. So after that is more a problem of the chain itself and the data storage. And that's why I said that we are looking into maybe splitting that into 2 different buckets. So maybe that some subgraph will live without, and maybe others will pay a bigger query fee because it requires more storage power, right? So it's something that we are aware of and trying to find the right trade-offs here.
I think realistically, it's not really possible to get servers with more than 20 terabyte of storage, I think.
That's quite a lot already. I mean, if you're buying your own, sorry, Chris, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's worth kind of making a distinction between the storage required for the flat files, which is independent to the storage required to operate the node and maintain its state. So these the kind of massive levels of data production that we're talking about can be shipped off to like spinning disk storage. You could use obviously any of the cloud providers, S3 type thing, or run Minio or something over a just hard drive cluster. I think like hundreds of terabytes of storage is accessible. It's obviously low performance, but for the flat files, that's fine.
I agree, and you're right, Tris, that it needs to be more understood that, like I said, it's the flat files that take a lot of terabyte and not the state of the node itself, which should have the same requirements as today. That shouldn't change. And after that, maybe we'll serve maybe just a year worth of blocks, maybe. Like we'll find a solution that makes sense.
Yeah, right. Like you can go just sequentially through the flat file, right? Because like that actually fits spinning disk pretty well.
Yeah, it depends on the traffic that you serve, but yes, spinning disk could work pretty good with those kind of traffic, right? We do not require high access to that. It's really so it's 100 blocks each time. So you load it. We don't require high latency. Of course, it reflects in the blocks that are pushed to the subgraph, but it should be totally manageable. It could be stored in different. You could split the history on different server. So there's a lot of possibility here, and like I said, I'm pretty sure we can find a working solution that works for the indexers, that they are able to actually serve the network correctly.
I think the other thing on load profile is that the kind of indexing load profile and the query load profile are really completely separate. So you could be serving huge amounts of queries on top of an indexing stack that kind of relies on Firehose data that's on spinning disks. Probably like the load profile for indexing will probably be mostly about how many subgraphs you're trying to index at the same time. Because if you're trying to kind of open multiple streams across these flat files in parallel, spinning disks and non-sequential I/O, it just won't work so well in that setup.
Understood. When do we get things like Arbitrum and optimism?
That's a good question. I think
An excellent question. I don't have the answer to myself.
I was actually asked by someone in my co-working space today, why is there no layer 2 on the decentralized network yet?
That'll come relatively shortly, I guess. Whenever we get to figure out a way to generate POIs in between chains.
Oracles?
Yeah, so I guess I can talk to that briefly. Yeah, so it comes down to POIs between chains, which is really about sort of synchronizing epochs, which you should, I guess, close allocations with, and because there's no way of knowing about the other chains without some means of sort of either bridging that information or an Oracle solution, like I think still establishing like exactly what that crossover will look like. But that I think that's the primary bottleneck. And then I guess there's the separate thing which is around bringing a fire hose to arbitrism and optimism, which is a totally different discussion.
Yeah, so if I recall correctly, the fire hose is pretty easy to manipulate in order to make new chains be supported on. Correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but that was what I know about it. So it shouldn't be that hard to get it implemented for other chains, but like before we do that, we really need first, I think, network support for these chains in order to make it worthwhile, the effort. Plus those chains should get much more tractions in terms of like how people use those and like what kind of subgraphs those chains use, because like if there's not many heavy subgraphs on them, and also given that those chains are relatively new, you don't really have much problems syncing the subgraphs of the like every time you upgrade them, syncing off the start block again, because they process quite fast, I guess, up to some point. We're not talking about years of data as in, for example, mainnet Ethereum with SushiSwap or whatnot. But yeah, it's just me talking out loud. Yeah, so okay, so I think we got Solana out of the way. Does anyone have any questions related to near integration? Because that's gonna have support in the next graph node, right, Adam?
Yes. So what's the latest build has near in it? Yeah, obviously similar to all the other ones. It's not available on this sort of decentralized network quite yet. But if folks would like to see graph node, I guess, indexing with the firehose, we're also currently testing. We're starting to test the fires with Ethereum subgraphs, which is going to be a pretty big thing over the next weeks and months.
Right, so testing the decentralized network with the Firehouse, you said?
So just testing indexing EVM subgraphs with the firehose. So there's the firehose was integrated as part of the near integration, and they're just like a few sort of wrinkles to iron out, I guess, in terms of actually just porting that across to indexing Ethereum subgraphs. But one of the bigger wrinkles is working out if you take the same subgraph and deploy it to an indexer who's just got a firehose connected and another who's got an RPC node connected, just validating that actually the sort of POIs are the same, that the indexing process is exactly the same. As that's one of the things we need to sort of verify or like identify if it's going to be possible to have that sort of one or the other thing, and then generally think about how we do versioning of subgraphs or graph node as sort of the firehose becomes the more sort of de facto or standard way of indexing subgraphs.
Are there any downsides for using just the firehose and not the old way of indexing?
Adam,
go ahead.
So one of the things that is not optimized right now is that Firehose requires you to actually stream all blocks, even though you don't record them. Right now, if you use RPC in the graph node, you'll have sparse logs. Let's say let's talk about logs. Since it's using the ETH_logs RPC call, it's able to actually skip blocks, right? It's able to actually give you only the event in those blocks, while with Firehose, the downside of that is that if your graph is really sparse in terms of blocks, you will receive a lot of useless blocks. So that is not optimized yet. So that's a downside.
Wouldn't simply pruning those blocks, or like just deleting them, solve this issue?
What do you mean by deleting them?
I mean, if you're getting like So essentially, when you're syncing a subgraph with the Firehose, you're getting blocks that don't really help you, right? Is that what you
Exactly.
mean? And those blocks also fill up your storage, right? So I was
They fill
thinking,
up the storage. Don't forget that those blocks are always full in the sense that they contains all the transaction for this block. So it's not only blocks for this subgraph, right?
oh, okay. So
It's
it's
blocks for the full chain. Of course, they are trimmed down when they reach the subgraph, the actual subgraph. They are quite trimmed down, but at the storage layer, when they are actually on disk, they contains the full transaction. It's not blocks for this subgraph, right?
okay.
And they are filtered in the graph node to actually be only takes what the subgraph requires, usually a single smart contract, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of a downside of the Firehose version, is that it's not able right now to actually skip blocks like rapidly, like jumping to a skipping, let's say, 1,000 blocks, because okay, I understood that now the next log is only in 1,000 blocks, so I don't need to actually stream you back those blocks right now. I can just jump to the next available block. That's an optimization that could come in the future about Firehose, that would be able to actually, let's say, maybe with side indexes, or there's different ideas that we had, and we even discussed some with other guys at the graph node about how we could actually like limit this downside a little bit.
Hey, are you actually developing a new client for every chain that you support by the Firehose? And if there are updates to the consensus or like extra opcodes, whatever, would then be an update required on the Firehose as well? And will there be like times when the chain upgrades and reindexers, we have to wait for something to be fixed?
So it depends on the chain itself, in the sense that, let's talk for Ethereum first. So what we use is that we have a instrumented get version. So you need to actually upgrade get. So we need to actually upgrade it also in our patch, because it's a patch get version that actually extracts blocks. So we need to keep track of that. After that, let's take Near, for example. Near, it's a bit different because we use the Near indexer framework right there. So of course it needs to be upgraded at some point, right, to actually keep up with the chain upgrades and everything. So that's also kind of a certain downside, if I can say it like that, that we need to upgrade, we need to track version, we need to upgrade them. Hopefully, one of the goals that we have is that like those integration would be in the client itself, right? So we do not write clients ourselves. We reuse the client of the chain directly. But our goals would be to have those kind of integration directly in the chain themselves. In the past, we had one integrated in the EOS chain. So now we don't maintain the patch anymore. It has been merged upstream directly. But that's the kind of thing that we would like to actually get that merged back at some point. Either as a, let's say, a plugin or something, or as an indexer framework, just like in Near, where we can actually just plug and update 2 or 3 things. There will always be some version maintenance to do, even though like Firehose is not kind of, it needs to sync with the network, so you need to actually follow the network upgrade. So yeah, does it answer your question?
Yeah, pretty much. And another question that came to my mind is that one of the problems with these fast chains is that they are producing a lot of blocks.
Yeah.
And we have like this blocks cache in the Postgres, which is on Ethereum now maybe like 1 terabyte, because the index is so large. Would that also be an issue when we don't use RPC anymore? Can we be more optimal there, or it's just the same?
It will, like, I'll use Near as an example, but we don't have the block cache anymore in Near, because the flat files are your actual cache, right?
That sounds awesome.
So the only thing that we'll require for Near is a quick block hash to block number to actually solve queries, because the queries that use a block hash will need to resolve to a block number. But that will be it will not be a big cache like you had. It would probably be something like a couple of megs. Like it's just keeping the block hash and its number so that we can actually resolve that. So
I wonder if that's gonna be in any way problematic with chain reworks. If you're going to translate block numbers into block hash. Oh, you're converting hash into block number, right?
Yeah, and we don't have the problem.
Yeah.
We don't have the problem. We'll just have some blocks that are reorg and fork so that they will be in the Postgres DB and not useful anymore, but they will be there, so it's not a big deal, right?
Yeah.
For the amount of data that it will take, it's a few bytes per entry, so not that a big deal.
Okay, fair enough. Adam, did you wanted to say something?
No, I think I was going to say something about block ingester as well.
Okay. Yeah, so if anyone has any more questions, feel free to ask. Regarding near integration, do we need, how would developing subgraphs for near work in terms of hosted service and the developers doing the work? Do they need to write any kind of special things in their subgraphs in order to use the Firehose? Or do they just simply follow the same kind of architecture as in Ethereum mainnet subgraphs and call it a day, and it will use the Firehose without them knowing that it's using the Firehose?
Yeah, so they don't know anything about the providers being used. There are some differences in the developer facing API. So on Near you have accounts rather than addresses. You don't have ABIs. And then obviously the data structures that they're accessing within the mappings are quite different. And so those are, those details are laying out in the docs. But yeah, there's nothing about the FIOs versus the RPC that means the information that they need to provide is different. Like the schema file is exactly the same. The mappings, you basically just receive different data into your mappings, and then the subgraph manifest just has slightly fewer fields for near subgraphs.
Okay, that's great. One just probably dumb question, but have you guys thought about having separate graph node releases for different chains? And I'm just thinking out loud in case there'll be we aim to support all the chains out there, and there's probably gonna have there's probably gonna be a bunch of chains that will be problematic or conflicting in the way they handle the data in some way, I guess.
So I guess a large part of the approach and choosing to use a Firehose, I think, for these new chains is kind of to move a lot of that chain specific knowledge outside of GraphNode. So all that's really relevant on the GraphNode side is essentially the types that are passed into the mappings. And yeah, Matt can jump in here and correct me if I'm wrong, but like a lot of that chain interaction is all happening on the Firehose side. All that GraphNode knows about is essentially the Firehose endpoint, and it knows what data it's expecting across that. And so that means that hopefully even with many more chains, and there were some discussions about moving some of those type definitions and even that knowledge outside of GraphNode, so it becomes really just a thing that receives data structures and processes them. And we might want to move to that over time, but ideally different chains look quite similar to GraphNode, and so you can actually keep one single code base for processing them all.
Yeah, that mostly what was discussed also at the retreat is that we are maybe looking into actually breaking it for more for people to more easily add new chains. It's one of our goals right now to actually reduce the time to actually add a new chain in the graph code base. So I'm not talking here about any firewalls or instrumentation or how to actually get the data out of the node. Really talking about the graph node software itself. Make it easier for other contributors to add new chains. Maybe like a new blockchain could come and say, okay, I have this firewalls integration already. I'm willing to actually contribute back in the graph node. So that's kind of discussion that we add, but the current consensus for the short-term vision is to keep a single graph node version. And like Adam said, most of the chain-specific stuff will be out of the graph node itself, inside exactly that client, instrumented client framework, indexer framework, stuff like that. So those will be separated for sure. So there's already a separation of concerns here, and we'll see for the future after.
All right, that's great. Okay, so we are 10 minutes away from the end of the session. Ford, are you around by any chance?
I'm here. What's up?
Hey Ford, I just wanted to touch base again on the indexer agent manual interactions and all that stuff. Do you know when or how far away that is?
Yeah, I'm working on that right now, but it's a pretty big PR, so it'll probably be another week before I have that done.
Okay, that's quite good, I guess. So yeah, I think the latest release is 18.2, which also has a bit of problems, right? I just wanted to
Yeah, it's not the smoothest on the transaction retries. I'm about to push another release today with the update there.
Okay, because I was just wanted to ask if
I can announce that in the indexers channel when I do.
that's perfect. Okay, so I'll include that in our 𝗨𝗀𝗃𝗀 repo. That's great. I was just like compared to 18.1, 18.2 is a lot better in terms of like for new people that are spinning up their indexers. They're not gonna see any database related problems for the indexer agent. But yeah, I'll just wait for your new release and include it in the new 𝗨𝗀𝗃𝗀 release then. That's
Awesome.
great.
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool.
One thing that I thought would be nice to talk about here in indexer office hours is something that I've probably floated to a bunch of you, maybe individually, but just wanted to share with the larger group, which is this idea I've had to do retroactive funding in the indexer community, both for the indexer agent and for just any useful tools that are being built for indexers. So my idea would be to do a retroactive funding maybe every 2 months and do a snapshot vote amongst indexers to rank the highest impact contributions across the indexer tooling set, and then we would do retroactive funding to pay those contributors. If you guys have any ideas on how that could be implemented or opinions there, I'd love to hear them now or in the Discord chat in async.
That's interesting. Chris, do you have anything to say about that? I was thinking maybe we can use Gitcoin for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fantastic idea. Full support from me. It'd be great to have more contributors.
Quiet group, but I'll take that as a positive response.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, any new contributions to the main indexer stack is more than welcome, I guess. And yeah.
Yeah, I don't want people to feel like they have to go through the grant process in order to get any funding. So, if people just have ideas and they're implementing them and sharing them ad hoc, we can find ways to give funding retroactively.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool idea.
All right. Does anyone have any topics in mind that we should discuss in the last 8 minutes or so? If not, we can probably wrap this call earlier.
Payne, what's the status with the Genesis block?
Oh yeah, that's true. I forgot about that. So I'm syncing with Leo. I've let him know about everything that is to know about the problems that we're facing. So TLDR, for anyone that isn't aware, any subgraphs that don't have a start block that you're trying to sync up with 𝗟𝗀𝗀𝗀 will not start, mainly because it's missing Genesis data for some reason. Like the 𝗟𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 node doesn't have Genesis data whatsoever, so it can't find the block 0, for example. I think it's that's where it gets stuck to. So those subgraphs will not start. I've posted I think it's 4 subgraphs that I found in the top 50 by signal that don't have a start block. They're posted in think it's in subgraph health, where you have to scroll a tiny bit up to find them. So if you're trying to sync those subgraphs, you'll have to use Open Ethereum, and I don't know if they do work with Geth node, but 𝗟𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, it's out of luck there. But I'm still syncing with Leo. I've sent him the details again. He's gonna craft a bunch of queries that I'll send into 𝗟𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 nodes and compare them to Open Ethereum to see what exactly is missing from Open Ethereum. And then I think we need to sync up with the 𝗟𝗀𝗀𝗀 team to get this implemented in 𝗟𝗀𝗀𝗀.
I don't imagine that the fix is particularly complicated. So if we can get, the reason I keep badgering you on it is because I want to get the 𝗟𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 team's eyes on it as soon as possible. I don't think we necessarily need to deep dive it before we let them know what we see.
Yeah, so when I first told Leo about this issue, and also when I showed him the logs, he just immediately said that it's a problem with 𝗟𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 not having Genesis data. So I think we can just elevate this problem with towards 𝗟𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 team, I guess. I mean, it's quite obvious, even if you look at the logs themselves. They complain about block range 0, not having any data, or actually
It should be easy to replicate with RPC, right? That's what you did already.
Sorry.
It should be quite easy to actually have a RPC call that exhibit the problem.
Yeah, I think this is the RPC that can't get any data from 𝗟𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 on block 0, basically the Genesis block. Because all the subgraphs that you're looking at that don't have a start block are complaining about the same kind of thing, that they have a missing block. And they're saying something very weird, that block 0 is above the chain head, so it doesn't exist, or something stupid like that. I don't really remember.
Yeah, I imagine with a simple RPC, it could be just open an issue on 𝗟𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, and it should be easy to actually tackle that. I agree with Chris that it should be easily fixed there.
Yeah.
They must have the Genesis block, otherwise they cannot sync the chain, so they have it somehow.
Yeah, I think
Just not
in
RPC.
yeah, I think in the 𝗟𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 chain that it exists, obviously, but like the RPC can't reach it for some reason. I'm quite amazed that no one has found this issue yet, outside of the graph, I mean. But I guess people are not so interested about that.
There's nothing. The first 48,000 blocks, they're kind of nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, there's only information in the Genesis block itself, because it has the initial balance of like 100 of addresses, But that's mostly it. Between 0 and after that, I think, like I said, 48,000. There's nothing there. There was nothing in those blocks. So
Okay, that's good to know. So yeah, Chris, if you want, you can reach out to Aragon Dudes and figure out a fix for that.
Yeah, I mean, like I haven't actually run into this issue myself. Can you just whatever you send to Leo to allow him to look at it a bit more closely? Can you just send to me and then
Yeah, it's just the logs that I posted in the subgraph health. I'm grabbing the link to that message. Give me 1 second. Copy link message and also put a dot reply on this. Chris, I'm tagging you here and also posting it in office hours chat.
Thank you.
There you go. Yeah, so that's about it. That's all the information we have around that thing so far. But yeah, so like I said, I've tried syncing all the first 50 subgraphs in signal weight, and 4 of them weren't starting whatsoever, and I was like, why the hell is not starting? Because I've seen people allocated, and a couple of them were synced up to Chainhand, and it wasn't making any sense. So I basically just turned on the trace logs and filtered out by subgraph name just to get an idea of what the hell was happening. So I just dumped those logs in gists and I pinged Leo after that. That's the main story.
Cool. Yeah, I'll open an issue on GitHub and stick it in the Aragon channel chat.
Okay, cool. All right, then I guess we can wrap this session up because it's around 9 on my time. So cool. Thanks everyone for joining this week's office hours. As usual, the next session will be next week at same day, 10 a.m. PST. We are anchoring this to PST just so that we don't have any time zone fuckery last week. But yeah, cool. See you guys then.
Thank you, Payne. Bye.
Bye.
See you, everyone.